Hi everyone, welcome to TBQ Live. This is a live broadcast that is going to take place hopefully every fortnight. I hope you're doing well. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending from where you're dialing in from today. TBQ Live is going to be a fortnightly live broadcast where I'll be bringing to you experts from different fields who are interestingly aligned to one of the 9 levers that are covered in my book, which is the Brilliance Quotient. And today we're going to be talking about a very, very important topic, which is the brain. The chapter was actually called Science Matters, and I'm going to be bringing to you the expert who's actually featured in that book, Maria Chase, and we'll be talking about mirror neurons today. And you can see a slide up there. So what is it that we're really planning to cover? Because Maria is joining us, I thought I'll also ask her a little bit about the rise of neuroscience and leadership. And then to really go behind it, because the TBQ Live is all about the science and art of leadership. So we're going to understand what are mirror neurons, what's the science behind it, and also then we go a bit into the art bit, i.e., how do you really apply that knowledge in life and leadership and branding and marketing. And we might be joined by the expert from branding, and if not, Maria and I will have that conversation as well. Without further ado, let me very quickly bring on screen my wonderful guest today, Maria. Hi, welcome.
Can you hear me, Rena?
Hey, Maria, I can hear you. Welcome. Thank you for joining. Hi.
Hi, lovely to see you. Thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here on this sunny Friday.
Absolutely, absolutely delighted. And I can see that we are really well coordinated today.
We are. See,
Talk about our
minds. Oh, absolutely. Great minds. Fantastic.
Great, Maria. So Maria is a news expert, coach, trainer, but I'm going to just firstly invite her to introduce herself. So Maria, you just begin by introducing who you are, why do you do what you do, and what do you do?
Okay, thank you so much. So I spent the first 20 years of my professional career in education, all things great practice to get peak performance from people. And having done that, I came upon neuroscience when I was delivering a life skills program to adolescents, and it just entirely impassioned me. So I left education, started my own company, and now I'm an applied neuroscience coach, which means I take the findings from the field, turn them into simple, elegant, and really practical tools so that people can get the very best out of the very best of us, which is our amazing and brilliant brains. So I work with clients. I've worked internationally with the Emerald team in America on their unconscious bias, with the editor of Grazia Bahrain. I also work nationally with Devon and Cornwall Constabulary, turning around some poor performing teams. I also am passionate about helping SMEs start and startup companies. So yeah, that's what I do, Rena.
Thank you so much, Maria. That's fantastic. So Maria and I actually met each other when I was writing my book. And I was doing a re-edit of my book, which is called The Brilliance Quotient. And I felt the need to introduce a chapter on neuroscience because that's something which was catching the attention of a lot of people. And especially in the field that I work, which is leadership, acceleration, it is something which is game-changing. And that's how we got started talking with each other. And then I interviewed her, and you can actually read her entire interview in the book itself. But why is it that I really wanted to talk about neuroscience and leadership, which is one of the 9 levers that I actually cover off in this book? I'm actually going to read out 2 things that are there in my book, which are very powerful, said by other people. So that's one of the great things about my book. You get to read about thoughts and wisdom from people who are experts. And I thought, well, when I'm writing a book, why not include them and bring their voice straight to you? So you're going to hear from Maria today. But in the beginning, there's a quote that I've used, read it out. It says, and this is by Gerald Edelman. Gerald Edelman is an author. He's an American biologist. He's actually a neuroscience expert as well. And he was given the Nobel Peace Prize in 1972. And he made this quote, which is really a great context to be talking about neuroscience and in leadership. And we talked with Maria also about it. He says, a knowledge of brain science will provide one of the major foundations of the new age to come. This is 1972. That knowledge will spawn cures for disease. The knowledge will spawn the cures for disease, which we are seeing that is happening. New machines based on brain function. Again, something that we are beginning to realize. Further insights into our own nature and how we know what we know. And this is something which is really critical and important. I think it's really well said by Gerald, because when you think about the whole knowledge of understanding how the brain works, what I have seen in all the work that I do with CEOs, with high potential executives, with entrepreneurs, is it empowers them with the knowledge to do various magnificent things. And we're going to be talking about some of them. But ways to really show about how the brain actually changes came to light for me when I moved from India to UK. And I moved in 2005. And one of the things that I was living in London at that point of time is I used to use the London cabbies a lot. That's how I used to be moving from one place to another. And I got started, as usual, London cabbies can share great stories and great anecdotes. One of the things that I love about London cabbies. And one of them told me about the knowledge of London exam that they have to go through, which is these various thousands of routes that they are supposed to memorize, and they get tested on it about how do you reach, if this particular road is blocked, how do you reach a destination, the quickest, fastest, so on and so forth. And what was interesting is that a study was done of the brains of all these cabbies. And they noticed that a part of the hippocampus, which is to do with spatial memory, was actually enlarged because they had to actually recognize and remember all of those different routes. And that starts giving a very interesting inkling. And for me, as an application into our everyday life, not just as leaders, is that the brain does change and neuroscience is becoming very, very important. But one of the questions that people often ask me, and this is a question for you, Maria, is that how much can we really rely on neuroscience when we're talking about leadership or anything else? What's your take on it?
The thing, Ingrina, is the brain is outstandingly complicated and complex. And there is so much that we still don't know. But thanks to the advances in imaging technology, we know more than we have ever known. So it does give us the beginning of a manual, because once you know how something works, then you get the opportunity to be even better at it. So neuroscience in and of itself gives us a huge amount of insights. It's 3 pounds of 100 billion interconnecting neurons that have infinite capacity to connect. There's connective tissue. And the thing about the brain is it's evolved over the millennia. So, the wrongly named reptile brain, because it's in mammals too, that was seen in 500 million years ago. Then you have the limbic system, which was one of the next systems to evolve. That was seen in mammals 150 million years ago. And then our neocortex, which is the part I'm pointing to now, that's about 1 to 2 million years old. So the thing about neuroscience is, as long as it's robust, as long as it's peer-reviewed, then we can rely on that knowledge. There's a lot of bunkum out there because it's become #trendy, neuro water. All water hydrates our brain. Yeah. So it's about just being discerning about which parts are you going to believe because it's peer reviewed, it's robust science, and which parts are, you know, kind of extrapolating just a little bit too much, really. So, yeah.
Great.
It's like,
thank you so much. Thank
sorry,
you, Maria,
what were
for
you
sharing
saying?
that. And that's really excellent. I think we are buffering a little bit, aren't we?
We are buffering it just a little bit. There's that kind of slight, the wonders of technology and the fact that also it has a downside, just like everything else, it's a double-edged.
Indeed, absolutely. But you're so spot on in talking about neuroscience is something that is giving us so much of information, but it's about the application, and you've got to be careful because there are a lot of myths that need to be debunked around it. I wonder whether there's any myth that you can think about that can be debunked regarding neuroscience. But I do know that a lot of techniques, philosophies, frameworks in Eastern area. So you think about ancient Eastern, especially I come from India. So you're thinking about Ayurveda, all of this pretty much recognized it. And, you know, that's why you have the whole thing about when you think about Ayurveda or yoga or meditation for that matter, it's about aligning the mind and the body. So the recognition of a lot of these concepts having there forever is just that I think so neuroscience is beginning to explain it to the modern way, to the modern world in a far more structured and logical way in a language that we can understand today. So it's definitely something that's been there for a really long time. But could you have thought about any myth that needs to be debunked, Maria, around neuroscience?
Oh, absolutely. There's the one on the net with the ballerina going one way and the ballerina going the other way. And it says, if you see it going clockwise, you are left-brained or right-brained, and the other way around. In actual fact, our brain is amazing. It does divide function. So our left brain does certain things, our right brain does other things. However, we don't just jump into one side and then jump into the other side. We use all of our brain for everything. So it's those kind of myths that really need debunking because, you know, it's like people saying we use 10% of our brains. That's so not true. We use all of our brains. It's about the connectivity, white matter, gray matter, the white matter, which is quite the majority of the brain, is actually the connective tissue. So the gray matter may perceive to be 10%, but actually all of our brain is being used all of the time. That's not to say that we can't totally up the potential of how we use our brain. And that's why I'm so passionate about neuroscience, because as I said before, it's beginning to give us a kind of manual in how to get the very best out of our thinking.
Great. Perfect. All right. So with that context, we're going to now dive into the actual subject of mirror neurons. So let's begin with the most basic. What are mirror neurons?
Okay. So, you know, when a yawn goes around a room, that is your mirror neuron system in action. They were discovered in the 90s by a team of neuroscientists at the University of Parma. And they were studying macaque monkey brain functions. So the monkeys had electrodes on them and they broke for lunch. And obviously they were just all sat round. Someone reached for an apple and someone also saw that, hold on, the neural pathways there for reaching for an apple have just gone off in that macaque monkey's brain. Well, how come I'm reaching for the apple? So what happened was they started to notice that there's a certain set of neurons that activate when we watch somebody. It's an observational thing. So mirror neurons are actually how we learn by observing, and they are the neurons of imitation and emulation. So some brilliant neuroscientists said they are the neurons of culture because they're how we share things really quickly rather than waiting for years and millions of years of evolution. If you watch someone light a fire, you learn how to do it. So your mirror neurons are being lit up when you're watching someone else do it, even though you yourself aren't doing anything. Yeah, the monkey wasn't reaching for an apple, it was watching someone reach for an apple. So what happens, the most simple thing to say is, what I do lights up neurons in your brain. I find that fascinating, and the applications are stunning. Yeah. So I
Great,
hope
Mary.
that was a simple explanation of something complex.
Absolutely. And I've got for you right now on screen the quote of one of the members of that team in Palma University who actually talked about it when they actually identified the whole concept that you're talking about, mirror neurons. And you're right, it's absolutely fascinating. And if you're the expert here, but I believe that the brain really, so neurons is something that brain is made of. And
Yep.
we have, I don't know, about 100,000 billion neurons that we have in our brain, really. And is that correct, Maria?
100 billion, roughly.
Yes, so 100 billion. And apparently, each neuron actually makes a connection with others about 1,000 or 10,000 times. So the scientists have actually gone and done a permutation combination of it and said the number of connections that our brain are making are far more than the elements in the universe. That's a huge ability for something which is 3 pounds of an organ. So that's quite fascinating. And I love the way that you explained it out. So if I'm mirroring back what is really happening in mirror neurons as a concept, is when I am seeing someone do something, a part of my brain as if I myself am doing it. So, for example, I could grab out and pick up this book. So I'm picking up this book, and basically what my motor neurons have said, pick up the book. But if I watch somebody else do that, a part of those motor neurons actually light up, and they think they understand or empathize, and that's where those words of empathy, imitation, and emulation really kind of come in. So in fact, why don't you deep dive a bit more around imitation and emulation? What does that mean?
Well, basically, it's about how we pass on information. It's how we learn. And like I said, I've always been fascinated by learning because I started my career off in education. And how we learn, we can learn by doing, we can learn by seeing, and mirror neurons are the part that give us the opportunity to learn by observation. So it's like with child development, for example, they don't have language, their brain, all of the wiring in their brain is very new. They have all of the capacity, but the wiring hasn't started. But they watch their parents, and that's how they learn. So when you see a small baby, I have a beautiful grandchild, and I'm eating, you watch her subconsciously start lifting her hand and thinking, oh, maybe I can be doing that. So they're almost about being pre-language, but also allowing us to do it without us realizing, because we are 95% subconscious, either automatic systems or being unaware of what we're doing. So mirror neurons are constantly looking at us, our environment, and kind of working out how we need to behave. So they're also, I think they're definitely the neuron system that is around behavior, and that's how some of the applications can be used, because mirror neurons, we are the neurons of influence, if you like. We can influence other people by what we do.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. In fact, one can argue, and this is something that I was reading by an expert who mentioned this from the University of California, is that one can argue that while the brain might have developed 300 to 400,000 years ago, in the last 100,000 years is when this part has really kind of come into place. And therefore, we've had the use of tools that have suddenly been spread across human civilization. Language has kind of spread across civilizations. Being able to learn things is faster because of this concept. So apparently that's one of the applications that have been talked about. But let's talk about not so much human civilization, but some of the actual applications that take place in our day-to-day lives. So I'm going to be inviting Maria to talk about a couple of applications. And I can see that we have been joined by my wonderful friend, and co-founder of actually the Plenary team. And I'm going to quickly bring her on camera and say a hi. So, hi, Steph.
Hey, ladies. Lovely to see you both. How are you doing?
We're good.
Doing
Lovely to see you.
well.
Good. I thought I'd drop in.
Absolutely, and great timing. Absolutely great timing. Because we've just been talking about the context of neuroscience and rise of neuroscience in leadership. So those of you who are joining us right now, this is what we've been talking about, which is all across, that is if I can actually see it, because I suddenly cannot see it. We've been talking about the rise of neuroscience and leadership. We've been talking about what mirror neurons are, the science behind it, and we're getting into the applications. So Stephanie, great time, because I'm going to be coming to you in a bit to talk about what's the application of this concept known as mirror neurons in branding and marketing. So we'll come back to you in a bit, and I will ask you to introduce yourself when you take over that particular section. So I'll see you in a bit. So Maria, before that, can I pass the baton back to you and tell us a little bit about the applications of mirror neurons?
Brilliant. Thank you. So the first application, if these are the neurons that are imitation and emulation, when it comes to leadership, the phrase leading by example has more power than it has ever had, because how you turn up, how you lead, if you hit those deadlines, your enthusiasm, your energy, the way you make decisions, all of that is then influencing how your team is working too. So what's amazing is you can align your team and get all of those working practices heading towards the same focus, which allows you to be so laser focused, because energy is always at a premium. So if your team is looking at how you do things and you are doing the things that are using your energy most concerted, so best, if you are doing things that means that you're inspiring other people, then your team is just going to pick that up. Because basically the other application that I want to give, not only are you leading by example, but mirror neurons mean the loudest mood wins. Now, what does that mean? That means that we've all been in rooms where someone's just down, and actually that affects the whole room. In the same way, we've been in places where someone is so upbeat, so energetic, so enthusiastic, and that's contagious too. These are the neurons of contagion, emotional contagion. And what's just really spectacular is they work over the net. I needed to test this out when we went into the pandemic, and I was like, okay, I'm not in rooms. I can't lift the mood, change the energy like I usually would as an applied neuroscience coach, but actually they work on Zoom. So if we work in actual environments and also more and more virtual environments, if you can see your teams, losing its energy, you can actually change that whole mood by what you bring to the table. Now, if I can light up neurons in your brain, there are just so many applications for influence by using and being aware of your mirror neuron system. If it sends a yawn around the room, it sends a smile around a room, it sends energy, it sends determination. So to me, the applications are as unique and as influent, as people. Yeah. So
great. Absolutely. Thank you so much. And in fact, so Maria and I have obviously, as I mentioned to you, since she's also featured in book, we've been talking a lot about this entire subject, and to really kind of summarize and bring some of those concepts to life. There's a slide that you can see out there, which kind of is from my level, it's almost about the way that you could use it, talking about leading. So it's think about the chaos that we're experiencing right now. So in other words, when you as a leader, forget about it as a leader, as a person starts showing positivity or hope, or how you can start influencing other people, which is what Maria was talking about. This other aspect which is really important that Maria touched upon is that listen carefully to what other people are feeling, because you can. Mirror neurons gives you that ability to actually empathize and understand. But the fact is that we are sometimes so stressed or so distracted that we don't pay attention to it. So my invitation to leaders today and to all of us is to listen to how people are feeling, because that's a great way then to be able to help them during chaotic times at any point of time. So that's a great application, I think, so to the concept of mirror neurons. But also when you start thinking about, so I work with a lot of people, and so does Maria, in large corporations. And, many times you're leading large change programs or you're in complex negotiations, is again to think about the whole application of mirror neurons. If you can feel the emotion of the other person or feel the tension in the room, which is there sometimes when you're in a complex negotiation, feel it. But in the moment, if you could change how you are feeling, so we have this entire concept in coaching, which is about feel the emotion, don't be the emotion. So if you can feel the tension or the chaos that happens in a change program in your organization, but if you as a person can do what we call circuit breaking, i.e. change the way that you feel and reframe how you're thinking or feeling about that negotiation, you will influence the people around you. And that's, again, another powerful application of mirror neurons in action per se. And I know we've been talking a little bit about in business, how you can use it in brand and marketing. But before we get into that, think about higher levels of influencing. We are talking today about climate change. We're talking about really safeguarding people's human rights. We're talking about creating different kind of a workspace. We talk about things like collective consciousness. I've written down the word be the change, and that's not my phrase, right? That's something that Mahatma Gandhi actually said, is that if you want to lead and make a big difference in the world around yourself, be the change. Because when you start doing things differently and you express your emotions and actions differently, you will influence other people, which goes back to what Maria has been talking about, another great application of mirror neurons. So some great ways to be able to take that concept into action. And now I'm going to invite Stephanie, first actually introduce herself. So Steph, hold on a second while I bring you on. As you know, this experimentation, my entire live broadcasting.
Yeah, brilliant. I love this. This is actually my first time experiencing this platform. So thank you. Very expertly executed. Love it. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. My name is Stephanie Melodia. I predominantly, my day job is running a marketing agency for startups and scale-ups, entrepreneurs in those early stages of their exciting business journeys. I've been running the business for 3.5 years now. Prior to setting up my company, Bloom, I led the UK marketing for a tech firm. And before that, I spent the best part of a decade working agency side. I'm not so comfortable with all the humble brags that you usually do as my wing woman with the kind of the top 20 and all these other kind of things. But yeah, that's me in a nutshell. So thanks for having me.
You can't just tease us with the top 20, because 20 could mean a lot of things. So I insist on you telling the people what top 20 are you talking about.
I know I needed a nudge there. So last year I was voted in the UK top 20 most influential female founders by Startups magazine. So very nice.
Thank you so much. Here, Steph is a marketing expert, and Steph and I met each other because we happen to be on the same panel chat in a WeWork location in London. And I was absolutely blown away with her confidence and her ability to be able to manage the entire panel. And we were quite a disruptive lot, if I remember, but she was such an expert. I had to reach out to her, and the rest, as we say, is history, because now I'm pretty much blown by her expertise in personal branding and marketing. So thank you so much, Steph, for being here.
Thanks, Rena. It's funny you mentioned that. Actually, I was remembering that the other day, just randomly. It was a last-minute panel that I had to jump in and moderate, and yeah, needless to say, you definitely left a mark on me as well. So yeah, it's been history ever since.
Indeed, thank you. All right, great. So we've been talking about mirror neurons, and for those of you all who might be joining in right now, the topic today is straight out of one of the chapters in my book called The Brilliance Quotient, which is Brain Science Matters. And today we've been talking with Maria Chase thus far on the whole concept of mirror neurons. What's the science behind it? How we kind of mirror each other. We understand what another person is feeling, and therefore that can become quite powerful in your daily life and in your business. But what I'd love you to be able to share, Stephanie, is that from a brand and marketing aspect, I'm going to break that up into two. So personal branding and also from a marketing aspect, what's the application of mirror neurons in your perspective?
Such a great question. And this is where I love these conversations, where you start from the neuroscience, you look at marketing and branding, package it all up into that one box there for a moment. And you look at that through that psychological lens is where it starts to get really powerful and really interesting. I'm a huge proponent of bringing back the human into marketing. And I think especially these days where we've had this huge digital explosion, everyone's got, in all honesty, overexcited about the social media channels, online. It's great, it's huge, it's powerful, of course, there's no denying that. There's a huge amount of advantages. You've got the visibility, you've got the tracking, you've got a lot of power behind it. We're all spending our time on our mobile and all the rest of it. That's absolutely fine. That makes complete sense. But where marketers are going wrong is they're clinging to those numbers and those analytics like a safety blanket. And they're forgetting that actually, instead of looking at numbers, users, metrics, you were talking about people. And I think it's important to remember, like at the end of the day, whether it's brands selling to consumers or personal brands in form of leaders influencing others, whether it's talent for their team or clients for their business, whatever the case may be, it all boils down to human nature at the end of the day. And so a few years ago, the term authenticity became the buzzword. I think it was 2017, where that was the buzzword that was being thrown around in the marketing circles. And it really is so vital. It's remembering that you need to be authentic in order to lead in business, not only to promote that true connection with your followers, with your clients, with your team, whoever they may be, but it means that you have that solid foundation to be able to consistently execute on that. And I think just kind of going back to the neuroscience angle of it as well, not that I'm the expert, obviously Maria, who was on here before, is absolutely the expert in that field. But it's remembering that you can only truly influence, you can only have that power if you're authentically yourself. And it does still come across via social media, via those online channels. I think we were talking before, I think I caught Maria earlier saying, even on a Zoom, I think even if you're kind of hosting a team meeting and everyone's kind of flagging and, it's kind of end of the week, energy's low, we're a bit tired. Is that right, Maria? You're back on screen. Yeah. You can still bring that energy to the table, right? You can still, we're not in the same room, but I'm already energized by seeing you two here. And we're talking about our areas of expertise, what lights us up, what's getting our neurons firing up, and we're vibing off each other. So if you do that, you're hosting, an Instagram live, or like we're doing to your followers, that's the key that's going to unlock that next level for you. And the last thing that I just want to say on this is, I don't think that we can talk about social media and the online spaces without mentioning, of course, how noisy these spaces are. And I think number one, most off-putting thing for people when they want to put themselves out there, first of all, is that fear of judgment, fear of failure, whatever the case may be. Most of the time, it's not even rational. The next thing, once you're able to move past that, is what do I have to say? Like, there's so many other people out there. There are so many other users and, these numbers are huge. Everyone's doing all these different things. What can I do to stand out? And so again, it goes back to that. If you're authentically yourself, if you're able to channel, your authenticity when it comes to those mirror neurons, it's just going to kind of reflect and pass around the room. So I'll wrap it up there because I'm kind of babbling on my subject of choice. But I think that's where it's super interesting, kind of connecting those dots when it comes to neuroscience, psychology, the nature of kind of human beings, and leveraging that to take your personal branding and marketing to the next level.
Fantastic. Absolutely love it, Stephanie. That's a great example. that you're sharing with us. How about if I was to ask you? All right, okay, so it's buffering at my side, so I'm not too sure whether I'm speaking over you.
I can hear you. No, it's fine. I'm quiet. We were good.
Thank you. But one of the questions that I was going to ask you is that what's your advertising? Do you think there is a way that set from mirror neurons can be used when we talk about ads being created by various companies?
Yeah, that's a great question. I love that one. The first thing that comes to mind is the popular documentary that was released on Netflix. Maria, now you're back on screen. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
We talked about this before. What was it called again? The name just escapes me. Do you remember what it was called, Maria?
No, it's escaped me now that you've said that. We've neuroned up.
Mirror neurons in action.
It'll come. It'll come.
There was
really mirror neurons in action out there.
Yeah, it's escaped me there.
The social dilemma. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, he doesn't really. You did it. Well done. Absolutely. Rena to the rescue. Well done. Yes, thank you. Social dilemma. Yeah. So that was the first thing that comes to mind when we're talking about the application in advertising. Yeah, back in the day, I love the show Mad Men. I'm a bit of a history buff. I kind of love the past, and my heart yearns for that time of the golden era of advertising in the 60s with Mad Men, where when you talk about an ad campaign, it goes on the press and in radio and billboards, and then from there we went into TV, and it all kind of seemed a lot more straightforward and easy from a production perspective, but nicer to human beings because it was less invasive. And I think for me, the biggest, so for anyone who hasn't already seen The Social Dilemma, this documentary, it basically explains how online digital advertising works and how incredibly persuasive social media ads can be, to the point that you start to enter kind of a very ethical, moral debate on the subject. For me, the most eye-opening element of that documentary wasn't any of the content whatsoever. I was fully aware of everything that they were talking about. This is my industry, so there was no surprises there. But the backlash, the response from other people who'd watched this, who were in different industries, their shock and them finding out these things for the very first time, I found their responses the scariest thing, because to me, all of it was obvious. So things like just how advertising works. So how if you visit a website, there's changes that's coming into law now with Google and cookies policy and things. But essentially, if you land on a website and you have all your cookies open, and they can basically, it's packets of data that follow you around the internet and track you. And they literally follow you around the internet, and they can target you on different channels and platforms. And sometimes you're not fully aware that you're being advertised to. And of course, the catalyst for that was this was obvious to me anyway, so I don't know if anyone else has heard of this, but it was the huge Cambridge Analytica scandal. So it was this a marketing agency here in the UK that ran the advertising campaigns for politicians, for the Brexit referendum, for Donald Trump. And the advertising tactics they were using were very questionable, because it wasn't immediately clear and obvious that you were being advertised to. One of the examples was actually a quiz in the Facebook feed. So while you're on Facebook and you're just kind of looking down your feed, scrolling and seeing what your friends are up to, they inserted a quiz. So it's like a fun game. So that's all you think it is. It's just a fun game. And you go through the steps in this. And what's happening is it's capturing all this information about you, and it's finding out more about you. That's not a bad thing in itself, as long as the consumer's aware. And that's where you start to get into this grey area. As long as you're educated and you're aware and you know what's happening to you, then it's fine. But where sometimes it's a bit grey, it's questionable, that's where you get into this tricky territory.
Yeah.
So that's where actually the neuroscience, that's where it's used against you. And the other thing is, one more thing I'll add to this is, building on from there, is not only does the internet, cookies, the data kind of follow you around and target you, but where we've got machine learning and artificial intelligence coming in as well, it's learning a lot about your behaviors, your habits, what you like, what you dislike, to a very scary degree. So literally to the degree of not only what you click on, but whereabouts on the page are you looking? Where are you scrolling? What are you more interested in? Are you spending more time on one product versus another? And over time, the more we're all on our phones all the time, we're all on social media, the more that we're spending there, the more it's learning about us, the more sophisticated the targeting is getting. So I said it's not a bad thing. The positive aspect to that is that it's making it more personalized to you, and it's delivering a better experience because it wants to show you things that you will like. But the problem is you need to be aware of what's happening to you when you're online. And I can see some comments coming through here. So please go and watch that documentary, The Social Dilemma, and just have an understanding of what's happening while you're online.
And I think, thank you so much for sharing that, Stephanie. So for me, connecting the dots back to mirror neurons, which is what we're talking about, the interesting element behind it is that when you're talking about influencing other people and you start recognizing what actually sways them at any point of time, it can be information that you can use positively to the benefit of people, or for that matter, use it in a way. Often one of the biggest things, and Maria was talking about earlier, where mirror neurons come in place, is emotions. We really pick up and can influence people through their emotions. So in the world of advertising, actually today, the kind of cues that are given out in advertisement as well is actually using the application of why there are certain advertisements. So forgive me for saying that, but sometimes when you see an advertisement say it's from a charity, what are the visuals that are thrown to you when you see it? It has an emotional reaction inside because you almost feel like that person is feeling and that is actually an application of mirror neurons. So you need to be very conscious and responsible as a leader today, or marketing expert, about how you're using this concept, which actually, if you stand back and look, is there all over the place. So absolutely brilliant. Thank you so much for bringing that into the picture as well. Maria, I'm going to bring you back to say, do you have comments on the marketing, wrapping up in another 5 minutes? So Maria, how about telling us, sharing around marketing?
Brilliant. One of the things I would say that I was thinking of as Steph was bringing it up is, if they are the mirror neurons of imitation and learning, if the algorithms are just constantly focusing us, well, we don't come upon the thing that suddenly we didn't know about. Yeah. When it used to be 5 channels, you would watch what was on. So you'd end up watching something that wasn't necessarily interesting to you, but now you're learning something new. So I think there's also that responsibility, as she was saying, about let's not make it all computer learning, because otherwise I just hear about what I know and what I like. That's not expanding me. Yeah. And mirror neurons are there to expand us. That's what got us here in the first place, watching other people do something differently that's kind of the same. So I think that's a really important point as well. You know, let's keep it open, keep it broad. I think it's really important.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Maria, for that one. I know another, but I really want to say thank you for everyone who's joined us. Absolutely brilliant, Maria. Great to have this conversation with you and Stephanie on the whole concept, the science and art behind leadership through the lens of mirror neurons. So really, please send me a message over chat or over LinkedIn with brain science, because we saw a series around it. In fact, in a fortnight, on the 30th, Maria and I are going to be back, and we're going to be talking about how you can combat burnout and fatigue. And we're going to be talking about the science and art behind it. Again, a skill level that we all need, not just to manage ourselves or lead ourselves, but to lead teams and communities and families that we're operating in this very, very difficult time. Now, for those of you who are actually live, saw Stephanie, Maria, and myself talking about this amazing subject. There's another cool connection between us, that we are co-founders of an academy known as the Plenary Academy for Entrepreneurs. And we set this up last year. And in fact, Maria, to talk a little about Plenary Academy for Entrepreneurs.
So, between us, we have 50 years of experience and a huge amount of passion for making sure that people can start up their businesses in a way that really works for them. So what we did was, having spoken, having kind of worked together in different capacities, we thought, hold on a minute. Actually, we could layer up our levels of expertise to give someone everything they need to raise their game. And as Rena just said, it is deeply disruptive and highly challenging times. And for leaders, whether you are a leader in a corporation or whether you're an entrepreneur leading your own business, a small company, an SME, how we lead makes a massive difference. Mirror neurons, we influence people. So what we've done is we are the only program, as far as we know, definitely UK, we think also globally, that combines 5 game-changing topics. We start with brain hacking. Once you know the code, you know how to make it even better. So everything you need to know about how to get optimum performance from your brain. Then we do emotional intelligence, because not only did Dan Goleman bring it into our awareness, but actually 90% of brain function is underpinned by how we feel. Emotional intelligence has never been more important now that we know the neuroscience. So those two are our first layer of our subject. Rena then comes in as a globally renowned executive coach. She then talks to mental resilience. Never has that been more important. It's always been important. You've got to be able to bounce back. You've got to be able to push through, but even more important in the times we are living in at the moment. And also strengths development. We may have natural talents, but are we playing to them? Or worse, when the brain's getting really excited, are they playing us? I can go in for days about neuroscience, but I may have lost the room because I'm not picking up what people are needing. So it's about playing to your strengths and making sure you do that brilliantly. Once we have all of the personal, this is who you are, we test your values, because that's where you shoot from. That's where your your motivation comes from. Once you know all about your brain, yourself, your mind, and we rewire the right mindset, because neuroplasticity is amazing. So we can actually wire and change new habits. Then we leave it to Steph, who is our marketing and personal branding guru, who then puts it all together, because we have a social media presence. Do we create that? Or is it just there? You know, you can type any name into Google nowadays. You'll see what's going on in their Facebook, what is happening in their LinkedIn, what's going on with their Instagram. If we want to be the leaders that we want to be and we want to raise our game, we'd like to help you curate that. We would love it, so that actually we're able to give you everything you need to raise your game. So it's called Plenary. It's an 8-week program. It starts on the 28th of April. It's on a Wednesday evening, 6 till 8. You get the chance to have 3 experts be with you. We do 16 hours of live coaching. You get a social media plan.
Hi, Maria.
Am I still live, Rena? I'm just working out if I'm still live. These are the joys and the technicalities of being online. So Unplenary, go to unplenary.com, look for us on Eventbrite, and we would love to see you in the only global marketing campaign that actually leadership accelerator. That means that you get everything you need to raise your game. Okay. I think I'm still on air. I think I've lost Rena. I think her internet connection isn't always as strong as it needs to be. If there is people still out there, if you could send me a message in the chat, that would be amazing, because then I would know if I am still live on air. How very exciting. I think Rena's coming back. Are you still there, Rena? Yay.
But another joyful aspect about being live is sometimes you get bumped off and you have no idea how you're getting along or whether you're still live. So thank you so much for holding the fort out there for us, Maria. And for those of you who have been online, I'm sure she shared with you everything around the Unplenary Academy for entrepreneurs and about the program. Did you tell them about the Discover Your Purpose workshop that we are having as well?
I didn't. I'm going to leave that to you, Rena. It was
Fabulous.
my neck.
Excellent. So there you are. So having heard what we do as an Unplenary Academy for Entrepreneurs, we are actually going to be having an interesting workshop on a topic which is catching the world by storm. Do you know what your purpose is in life? And how do you go about getting to know what your purpose is? So Maria, myself, and we have a very special guest who will be joining us, as well as Stephanie. All of us will be coming together to be delivering a live workshop on the 23rd of April at 12 noon. It's around discovering your purpose. So do join us for that. We will be posting a link on it under the recording of today's video. Otherwise, go to Eventbrite. And for April 23rd, Unplenary, do sign in and join us for that workshop or Discovering Your Purpose, or just drop us a line. Drop me a line at hello@renadayal.com and I will send you the link. But thank you so much for joining us. Maria, thank you so much. You've been a fabulous expert on panel, and of course, at some moment of time, also hosting it when I vanished. So thank you very much for that. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. Maria, sorry, you want to say something?
No, just thank you so much. I've so enjoyed it. It's great to just be able to share our passions, and both of us are so passionate about everything we do. So it's been great. Thank you.
Indeed, indeed, absolutely. And for those of you who have heard us or are going to listen to the recording, Maria and I are going to be back on the 30th of April for the next live broadcast at 12 noon GMT. And we're going to be talking about how you and we can combat fatigue, burnout, and stress. See you then. Till then, take care. Be safe. Bye for now.
Bye.